As the cameras kept on flashing, Taeshik was making his presentation, saying that in the combined association meeting this time around, they will be talking about the current gate incident. Even at this moment, they were having exceptional players and guilds assist in the investigation, and they were coming up with countermeasures as quickly as possible, so they would like for everyone to not be too worried and wait for future updates. Then a reporter asked who the man behind him was he a member of the association members who will be participating in the meeting? Touching Gidju's shoulder, Taeshik presented him as the new ranker that was recently announced. He continued to say that his codename was Morningstar, and the association regards him as the ranker who's closest to becoming a high ranker. At this, Gidju nervously glanced over at Taeshik beside him, wondering what the F. All the cameraman and reporters watched this with shock expressions. Then reporters were shouting and asking Morningstar if he had a unique ability, if he belonged to any guild, and what level he was. Gidju could only stand there dazed, wondering how things could have turned out like this, while Brunhart told his master that he was very popular. After the press conference, Gidju and Taeshik started to board a plane, and Gidju asked why they were going on a sudden trip to America. What was the combined alliance meeting about? And why were they going in a flashy plane when they could just go there faster using a portal? Taeshik looked back with a grin and raising up a finger, told him that performances like this was important. Didn't he say he no longer wanted to hide his powers? Gidju with a dreaded expression said that he did say that, but he didn't know he'd be revealed to reporters so suddenly, and no wonder he asked him to wear a suit and took him to a hair salon beforehand. El told him that the look suited him very well, and Brunhart remarked that his master looked so handsome, while Lu said they probably did that to make him look like he belonged to the association. Taeshik entering the plane without a care said, "So what, didn't it make him feel good?" And Lu remarked that it's most likely the association chairman's idea, calling him an old geezer. While lowering his head with a sigh, Gidju said it would have been nice if they'd given him a heads up about the situation. At that moment, Taeshik glanced back and noticing something, asked Gidju, why did he take his shoes off for, and Gidju looked at him dumbfounded and said, he was told he needed to take off his shoes on the plane. His sister told him that. Then stood there silent for a moment, before saying don't tell him it's not true. In LA, at the American Association Hotel, Gidju was lying on the bed looking at his phone, saying that he couldn't believe his sister lied to him. On the phone his sister had messaged him that he needed to take his shoes off before boarding the plane, or else they would treat him like a country bumpkin who didn't even know his manners. He thanked her for the advice. When he told her that he didn't need to take off his shoes, she replied with laughter telling him she couldn't believe he fell for her trick. Then shaking with anger, he stated that she will be in deep trouble once he gets back. Elle tried to comfort her master saying that she believed it's possible for someone to think that was true, while Lu called him an idiot, and Brunhart was glad his master was stupid, since he was stupid too. Staring blankly at the ceiling, he told Brunhart thanks. He soon closed his eyes, and laid on top of his bed thinking. He told himself enough about that, since he can feel a wave of strong energy within the hotel gathering, are the world's strongest people gathering here. He soon raised his hand and called out to Elle. She appeared in her human form kneeling before him, asking her master if he had called her, and she was awaiting his orders. He quickly told her that he didn't call her for any tasks, but since she now had a physical body, he was hoping that she could just stay around him. Brunhart expressed his desire to have a body too, while Lu stated that the sword was his body. As he looked at her ponderingly, he commented that her wings stood out quite a bit, and asked if she could hide them. While making her wings disappear from sight, she asked him if this was what he wanted. He was surprised at how easily she could hide them, then asked if she could also change her clothes as well, since they also stood out. She told him that it was possible, then her clothes started to shine brightly, and in the next moment, she was clad in full metal armor, like Joan of Arc. She told him that this was what she wears for combat. In return for higher defense, there's a certain drop in mobility, so she only wear them when needed. With a dumbfounded look, he could only reply okay. Then suggested that they go buy her some clothes later, and Lu remarked that she's pretty stupid sometimes too. Meanwhile at one of the unique demonic gate, inside a large mantis monster was about to make his attack, and Siqu was able to casually dodge the blow. Then glancing at the monster in front of him, he struck his foot on the ground, creating ice that encased his foe in place. Then nervously touching his neck said that he went ahead and did it again. He's just not suited for infiltration, as all the monsters around him are all encased in ice. Then letting out a long sigh, said that he guessed that's all good if the results were good as well. Then as he continued to walk forward, he came to a stop in front of a large pit on the ground. Thinking about this place, it seems to be the most suspicious. Wondering if he should go into this pit right away, then thought better of it, since the energy it's exuding feels like trouble. He turned to leave, since he's used up too much of his magic power in a short amount of time. As he was walking back, thinking that he needed to report this matter as soon as possible, white tentacle-like things started to come out of the pit behind him. As soon as he felt something, he turned his head to look back. To his surprise, the white tentacles surrounded his position, then in the next moment, they were starting to wrap around his body. He was thinking, what on earth was this? They looked like spider webs. Using his skill, he created ice daggers in both his hands, then started to cut at the webbing, turning them into shreds that fell to the ground. With a cocky expression, he said that no matter how tired he was, did they think he'd let himself get caught so easily? Then to his surprise, an overwhelming huge shadow rose before him. A huge amount of webbing surrounded by red aura was coming out of the pit in front of him. It was faster and stronger than before, and soon his entire body was covered by the webbing again. Thinking something like this couldn't keep him tied, he tried to cut it again with his blade. But in the next moment, to his shock, more webbing appeared and quickly took the blade out of his hands. The webbing started to cover his mouth, making it harder for him to breathe. Within moments, it quickly wrapped his body like a cocoon, and as he was thinking this was dangerous and he needed to report this to the association somehow, it started to drag him down into the pit. Soon, the area was covered in silence. Meanwhile, back at the American Association Hotel, Sung-hoon was leaning against the wall. He was waiting in front of his room to surprise Giju. He was thinking he came in through a portal instead of coming along with him, just to do this. He even borrowed the necklace of presence confusion from the association, just for this moment, and he doubted even Giju, who had exceptional detection skills, would not be able to easily distinguish him. Then as the elevator started to move to his floor, he felt a familiar presence, thinking that he was finally here. He quickly ran to the elevator door, and raising both his hands up in the air, happily shouted, "Surprise Ranker Kim Giju." But then in the next moment, was shocked at what he saw. Giju was standing inside the elevator dressed in a formal suit with a young lady next to him. Elle was standing there dressed in a very cute outfit. Sung-hoon asked him if this was his daughter, to which Giju incredulously asked what he was talking about, then told him to move aside so that they can get out. Inside the lounge, they sat down and calmly explained the situation. Elle was enjoying her mocktail, while Sung-hoon nervously asked if this child, he means this little miss, was that ego. To which Giju nodded positive, and Brunhart complained why was Elle the only one enjoying delicious stuff. He wanted to eat some too, but Lou reminded him that the only thing they can eat was air. As Sung-hoon watched Elle sip on her drink, he was amazed to think that the egos can transform into humans. She's definitely not a normal person, but she didn't feel like a player either, since he couldn't feel any mana from her at all. At this, Giju looked at him and asked if that was so. Since he was thinking to himself that Elle definitely possesses mana, and uses it too, but was this what others feel from her? As he was sipping on his drink, he pondered that maybe this was due to the system. Then Sung-hoon, covering his mouth, asked him if he felt it too, and Giju replied yes, this place is filled with monsters. He didn't even need to use his demonic eye to know that each and every person here was one of the strongest people at the world level. Lou warned him not to even think of using his demonic eye, since at this level, they'll realize he was using it, and things might get troublesome. As Giju calmly drank his drink, he replied that he knows. Sung-hoon commented that it's rare to see so many strong and famous players gathered in one place, and asked if he recognized them as well. Just as he said, even if Giju didn't know much about this industry, he knew who they were. The man sitting at the bar was from the Middle East, a high-ranker codenamed Oil King. He was an oil conglomerate before he even became a player. And over there, sitting at another table, was Japan's high-ranker Susanoo. Just at that moment, he and other players in the room felt it. Someone was stepping into the room. As high-rankers in the room turned to look at the newcomer, he was a man with blue hair and wearing a white suit. Giju whispered to Sung-hoon, asking him who this new person was, and he replied that he was not sure either. He knew most rankers and high-rankers though. Giju thought that the flow of this man's mana feels ominous. He wasn't 100% certain, but he thought that this newcomer was as strong as Su Young, the Demon King. As the man with the blue hair noticed something, his eye flared up with blue intensity in Gidju's direction, and he let his golden fighting aura explode from his body. The pressure caused Sung-hoon to clutch at his chest in pain, and noticing this, Gidju shouted out his name in concern. Lu told him that he won't be able to withstand that energy because unlike him, he was weak. Gidju called the guy with the blue hair an a-hole, and started to exert his own pressure to counteract the effect. When the two auras clashed, it broke the pressure, to the surprise of other high rankers in the room. And Sung-hoon was able to breathe normally again. This outcome surprised the newcomer, who said it wasn't bad. This angered Gidju, and he started to get out of his seat saying what the hell did he think he was doing. When he was interrupted by L, who angrily said how dare he do that to her master. Shattering the glass in her hands, shouted with rage, how dare he exude killing intent towards her master. Brunhart said her name in concern, while Lu thinks she might have lost her rationality. Gidju in a panic tried to calm Elle down, while she stared daggers at the guy. The guy with the blue hair putting his hand to his chest nervously asked, why was the saintess together with the man who reeks of a filthy demon? Both Gidju and Elle looked at this guy with puzzlement. Gidju turned to Elle and asked her, was she a saintess, to which Elle shook her head negative and said that she didn't know what he was talking about. Gidju turned to look at this guy, and thought that he definitively felt something from that man, but what the hell was he talking about? Just at that moment, someone shouted for Michael to stop it. As the guy with the blue hair turned back to look behind him, he saw the Pope walking towards him. Seeing who it was, Michael quickly got down on the ground and kneeled before this individual, saying, "Greetings, Your Eminence." The Pope, wearing his regalia of state, exited the elevator. Gidju and Sung-hoon got out of his seat when they saw the Pope. Lu asked if that was the Pope, the one that leads a religion. He guessed that he was worthy of being a leader, since that old man was strong enough to be on par with the strongest people in this room. As Taeshik appeared from behind the Pope, he asked what was going on in here. When Taeshik saw Gidju, he waved to him, saying that he sees that he met up with Sung-hoon already. Then Gidju in turn asked why he was here, together with the Pope. Then sheepishly rubbing the side of his head, Taeshik said that he wasn't sure how Gidju thought of him usually, but he's here as the representative of Korea, so he ought to talk to the representatives from other countries too. Then getting serious. Asked what is this situation right now, and he was asking Michael. Who was shocked to hear his name, then saw the huge aura that Taeshik was emitting. Others in the room also felt a bit nervous at the pressure they felt. Michael, pointing to Taeshik, asked His Eminence why is that person, but the Pope interrupted him and shouted for him to shut up, saying that he told him to not start any trouble before the meeting starts, and how dare he point his finger at a VIP from another country. Nervously, Michael pointed to Gidju and said that, couldn't he sense it too, that man possesses a demons? But the Pope shouted his name, which stopped him from talking any further. The Pope continued to say that he wants him to be isolated in his room until the meeting, and he was not going to accept any objections. Michael looked up at the Pope in shock, then silently lowered his head. Then, accepting the command, left the lounge. Gidju let out a long sigh, and said he didn't even know why the hell this keeps happening. Turning to Elle to see if she also agreed, but became surprised at what he saw. Elle was sitting dazed and mumbling to herself, and kept repeating the name Michael as if she recalled something from her lost memories. Gidju continued to stare at her in puzzlement, and then, as if struck by lightning, Elle seemed to have recalled something about this person. Then, as he watched, she collapsed onto the table. Puzzled by this event, even Brunhart asked Elle what's wrong, and Lu asked what was she doing. In a panic, Gidju shouted out Elle's name. Sometime later, back in his room, Elle was in her ring form. Taeshik was sitting beside him on the bed, asked if Elle was going to be okay. Gidju silently stared at the ring on his hand for a bit, before replying that she should be fine, probably. He recalled that back in the lounge, Elle suddenly fainted. Lu said that she must be taking after her master, since he's always fainting at the slight thing. But Gidju told him that this was no time for jokes. Lu told him to calm down, since she was simply stimulated by her memories. Since, like him, she has tons of lost memories. He didn't know all the details either, but he's pretty sure it has to do with meeting that Michael person.
While he's not sure what's happening, he's definitely no ordinary man.
More importantly, Lu can feel the energy of an angel from him. After recalling all this, Giju lets out a long sigh.
Then turning to Taeshik, asks him who that Michael person is.
Taeshik replies that he doesn't know either, and the only thing he heard was that he was someone that the Vatican Church has nurtured to be their strongest player. But even he didn't expect someone from the Vatican to have such a nasty personality, and Giju just listened to this silently. Taeshik told him that he's heading out to sleep, since there's a meeting tomorrow. Just as he was about to leave, he looked back and advised Giju to do the same, since he will also be attending it tomorrow with him. And oh, don't get into any trouble, to which Giju incredulously replied he won't. Did he think he was still a kid? Then the next day, someone called Giju a bastard, to the shock of other high rankers in the room, saying just how the F did he grow so strong in such a short time, as Giju stood there emitting an intense killing aura. Giju smirked, saying long time no see, Iron Shield. As the two faced each other. Subscribe to the channel for the next part. Thank you for watching, until next time.